Today we are going to dive into the vibrant and exciting world of flamenco shows in Spain. Flamenco is a traditional art form that combines music, dance and song, and is an unmissable cultural event for anyone visiting the country. In this video we are going to take a look at the flamenco shows with practical tips and recommendations to make the most of the experience. Hola, ¿qué tal? Hello, I am Tony Galvez from Road Trip Spain and Portugal, where we help you plan the perfect trip with practical information and insider tips. Flamenco is a living witness to Spain's rich history, reflecting the fusion of several cultural influences, including Arabic, Jewish, and Gypsy. Because of its importance, it was included in the UNESCO's Intangible Cultural Heritage List in 2010. Obviously, there is no one in Spain who doesn't know what flamenco is, but that doesn't mean that we are all great experts on the subject. Far from it. For that reason, we have to start the video by confessing that we are not specialists in flamenco, nor are we great fans. We find it a fascinating art form, but you won't see Cecilia in a flamenco dress or myself dancing a zapateado. However, we have been to quite a few flamenco shows in the last decade, from Barcelona to Seville, and we have a fairly accurate notion of the questions facing tourists who attempt to choose a flamenco show for their first time. Doubts that we are going to try to clear up in this video. Many people who ask us for a flamenco show recommendation ask for a show that it is not for tourists. And here's the first lesson. All flamenco shows are for tourists, just like tango shows in Argentina or fado shows in Portugal. There may be some locals in the audience, but the shows are for tourists and they survive thanks to tourists. To see flamenco outside the tourist show circuit, you will have to visit a city where a flamenco festival is taking place. The fact that they are shows for tourists means nothing, because there are excellent shows just as there are shows of mediocre quality. What counts above all is the quality of the artists. And in the vast majority of flamenco shows, the artists tend to be good to very good. Where do the performances take place? In the Spanish cities with a deep flamenco tradition, there are a variety of venues where you can find these performances. The most classic is the Tablao Flamenco, usually a relatively small space with a raised rectangular stage and the spectators' chairs arranged around it. It is the type of venue where you can have the closest contact with the artists. But there are many performances in theaters or in such wonderful venues as the Palau de la Música Catalana in Barcelona. What you lose in terms of greater distance between audience and stage, you gain in terms of the grandeur of the venue. Finally, in Andalusian cities like Granada or Seville, you might get lucky and get to see a semi-improvised flamenco performance in the streets of the city without having to pay anything beyond the coins you want to give the artists. In Granada, the party is usually organized at the Mirador de San Nicolás in the Albaicín neighborhood, while in Seville it can take place in the Plaza de España or in the streets of the city's center. Flamenco show with or without food. Here our recommendation is very clear. Preferably choose a show without meal. If you are offered food, it should be before or after the show. You don't want to divide your attention between the show and the food. Shows with food are aimed at a less discerning tourist, and you should be aware that you're going to pay dear for a meal that it's not going to be top notch. How long does a flamenco show last? Most shows last between 45 and 60 minutes. If you've never seen a show before, longer than that can be a bit tiring. Related to that, we have been asked quite a few times if it's possible to go to a flamenco show with children. There is no prohibition or restriction in this respect, but you have to know that if the children are quite small, they will probably get bored during the performance. And if they are very small, if they are babies, they might be frightened by the intense and piercing noise that the dancers make when they hit their shoes hard on the floor. What is a flamenco show like? During the show, a group of artists play a series of songs representative of the different flamenco palos. The palos are the different styles of the art of flamenco. They can be bulerías, fandangos, soleás, seguidillas, and quite a few more. To create the magic of flamenco, the work of several artists playing different roles comes together to create a harmonious art. First of all, there are the musicians, mainly guitarists, who play the flamenco guitar, a type of Spanish guitar, and the percussionists, who play the cajon, an instrument that was incorporated into the flamenco musical repertoire by the great Paco de Lucía. Another fundamental element of the percussion are the palmas, which mark a constant and characteristic rhythm of each type of flamenco style. And finally, another very important element of percussion is the zapateado flamenco, which today is almost essential in most of the flamenco styles. Alongside the musicians, there are the dancers, often with castanets, another typical element of flamenco percussion. The dancers take center stage and translate the music and singing of their fellow artists into dance. And finally, there are the cantadores and cantadoras who translate into sung word the art of the dancers and musicians to create flamenco. It may seem like a complex art form, and yes it is. Flamenco is an art form with many layers and nuances that are not accessible to all spectators. In fact, most people who see a flamenco show don't even manage to understand what is being sung, especially in the case of non-native Spanish speakers, and probably don't even know that the palos, the different varieties of flamenco mentioned earlier, exist. Unless you are told, you won't know you are listening to a fandango or a bulería. But the secret of flamenco's success lies in the deep emotional connection between artists and audience, which goes beyond language barriers or knowledge of technique. So approach flamenco as we do, as an opportunity to witness an artistic manifestation that may or may not end up overcoming the barriers of artistic language and reaching your heart. And if you like it, you can always come back. What would be the best cities to see a flamenco show? As many of you probably already know, flamenco is an art form that was born and developed in Andalusia. But that does not mean that Andalusia is today the only place where you can see a good flamenco show. What we recommend is the following. If you are visiting Cadiz, Córdoba, Granada or Seville, try to book a flamenco show in one of these cities. But if you're not going to the south of Spain, there are excellent flamenco shows in both Madrid and Barcelona. Many people don't know, but there is a long flamenco tradition in Barcelona, the city where one of the greatest flamenco dances of all time was born and lived. In the description of the video and the first commentary posted below it, we're going to put links to several recommendations for good flamenco shows, so that you can feel more confident in choosing from the huge number of options available. And this has been our take on flamenco shows in Spain. If you have any questions on the subject, take the opportunity to ask. Andalusia is the birthplace of flamenco, and we have many videos dedicated to the region on the channel. You will now see a link on the screen that will take you to the complete list of videos we have dedicated to Andalusia. We are waiting for you there.